In this project, we're going to create an interface using both XAML and C#. And our project is to create a reference for all the capitals of the 50 states. We're going to use a scroll view that will allow us to scroll through all the items. And each of these items are in a label, and we're going to create the 50 labels using a loop in C#, but the other items we'll create in XAML. And we're going to also use two arrays for the states and the capitals for each state, and use the values of those arrays in our loop to create the labels. So let's go into Visual Studio and get working. So I'm in Visual Studio for the Mac. I'm going to create a multi-platform app, blank forms app. Let's click Next. So this is assignment BO2, and I'm going to call it State Capitals Demo. I'm going to make it for both Android and iOS. We're going to use .NET Standard. I'm going to click Next and click Create. Here then is our project. I'm just going to rebuild it just to get the previewer working. Tells me the build was successful. Right, so here's the previewer for the iOS side. And the Android side is having some problems. It's trying to initialize the renderer. And I did read on a blog the other day that with the most recent update to Xamarin.Forms, the Android previewer seems to have some problems. And the next version, Visual Studio for the Mac 2019, is just around the corner in a couple weeks, I believe. Supposedly it's going to be fixed in that version, so I don't think they're going to do any more updates at this point for 2017. Like they're just trying to push the 2019 out. So that's okay. We'll just work with the iOS side as far as the previewer here. I'm going to get rid of this label. And you may remember that when you saw the application right at the beginning of this video, we had a label at the very top of our application that showed the name of the project and some author information, and that did not scroll. So in our stack layout here, we're going to have another stack layout at the top, which is going to be that information, the title and so forth. I don't want that to scroll, and then I'll have the scroll view below that inner stack layout. So I'm going to create a stack layout, and we'll add our closing stack layout. I'm just going to drop that down. And I'm going to set the back color here, the background color, to red. So then inside this stack layout, I want to add a label. I'm going to set the text of my label equal to state capitals. I'm going to make that all uppercase. I'm going to set the horizontal text alignment to center. The text color is going to be white. I'm going to set the font size to be large. And the font attributes, make that bold. And that's my label. I'm going to copy the label. I'm going to paste the label. This one, I'm just going to change the text in the second label. I'm going to say coded by Stephen Hustedde. And I'm going to change the font size here to be medium. I'll leave everything else as is, but I'm going to copy this label and paste it. And then this third label, I'm going to have the text say for CIS 165BC at SMCC. I'm going to rebuild. So I'm not sure why the iOS previewer is not working. It's not updating. And the previewer is a very new feature in Visual Studio, so it seems to be a little buggy. We're not going to worry about it. We'll test this on our emulator as we do a little more work in this. So now I want to scroll view to our closing scroll view. And inside this scroll view, I want another stack layout. And I'm going to give the stack layout a name. I'm going to refer to it in my code. So we use x:\name. Name is capitalized. Equals. And I'm just going to call this SL capitals. And then put a little comment in here. Now, to do comments in XAML, it's a less than, exclamation, 2 dashes, and then your comment. So I'm going to just say children will be added in the C# code. And then you close that comment with 2 dashes and the greater than. And notice it's in gray. That shows that it's a comment. Okay, that is our XAML. At this point, I want to test it in my emulator. And there is our red stack layout consisting of the 3 labels, those labels being in white, and that's exactly what I was looking for. So all of our labels for the states and the capitals are going to appear in this scroll view below that. I'm going to end that. And now we're going to go to our C# code behind. Now I need some information as far as a list of the states and a list of their capitals. So I'm going to go out to Google. And I did a Google search and came across a site in Encyclopedia Britannica that shows all the states and the capitals in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to select the information. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to do a little trick here of doing some coding in Excel. I don't want to type in all of these capitals and all of these states. So we're going to go into Excel. And in Excel, I'm going to come down to row 2. I'm just going to paste. And I'm going to get rid of my extra 3 columns here. I'm just going to put a double quote in cell A1. And then write a formula here in cell C. So in C2, this is going to equal A1 ampersand A2 ampersand A1 ampersand, then I'm going to do a quote, comma, space, quote. Now I want A1 to be a absolute reference, so I'm going to put $signs in front of the A and in front of the 1. I'm going to do that in both locations. And press the return key, and now I get Alabama, in quotes, a space, a comma, and a space. So now in cell C2, this is going to equal cell C2 ampersand A1 ampersand A3 ampersand A1 and ampersand quote, comma, space, quote. And again, I'll make these references to A1 to be absolute references with $signs in front of the A, in front of the 1, in both locations. All right, that seems like that takes a long time to do those. So wouldn't it be easier to just type them in? Well, not really, because now in Excel we're going to use the fill down property. And so there, on the very last one, I'm getting all of my states, comma separated, in quotes, as a string. Now, if I look at the value up here, it's a formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that, and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come down to cell A53, and then I'm going to paste special, and again, I'm just going to paste the values. Okay, so there's my string. Now I want to do the same thing for the capitals. And what I'm going to do is just simply go to cell C. I'm going to drag, actually I'm going to drag out cells C2 and C3 over to the right, and now I'm getting the capitals, Montgomery and Juneau. I'm going to take cell D2 and I'm going to fill down. There's going to be my capitals. Now I'm going to select cell D51. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste special. Okay, so I'm going to click on cell A53. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go into Visual Studio. In Visual Studio, I'm going to create a couple of arrays. As you may have guessed, these are going to be string arrays. I'm going to call the first one state. It's going to equal, I'm going to do my curly brackets, and inside those curly brackets, I'm going to paste in all of my states. Now, I probably have a comma at the very end of that, so I'm going to come down to the end and get rid of that extraneous comma at the end. Then I'm going to do the same thing, string. This is going to be capitals. Let's call it capital. Equals. In my curly brackets. I'm going to go back to Excel. Select the cell A54 that has all the capital strings. Copy that. Come back in. And paste. And once again, I want to get rid of that extraneous comma at the end. And to make this a little more readable with my code, if I want to be able to print this out, let's put in some carriage returns here so we can see all the information. And I'll do the same thing for the capitals. There we go. So those are our local string arrays that we're going to use in a loop to create our labels. So one thing I need to do here is add in my semicolons for those two statements. Forgot to do that. Then we come to the main page. In the main page, one of the things we can do in our C# code is modify elements in our XAML code. And I want to modify the title label that we created. I know this was kind of small when we ran it. So I'm going to add a name, x:\name property to my XAML. And in the quotes, we're just going to call this LBL title. So now in my C#, I can say LBL title dot font size equals 32. I'm not tied to the large, medium, small, micro enumerations that are in XAML. I can actually specify different sizes here. Then we're going to create a couple strings. I'm going to call this new label name and new frame name. So we're going to have a label inside of a frame. Then I want to loop for int I equals 0, I is less than 50, and I auto-corrected my I. So I is less than 50, I plus plus, and we'll create our loop. So each time through the loop, we're going to create a new label. I'm just going to call it LBL. It equals a new, we'll call the label constructor. And then we can modify properties of LBL. So LBL.text equals, I'm going to take state sub I, so pull the first element out of our array each time through the loop. We'll pull an element out. It's a string. I'm going to set this to uppercase to make it stand out. So to upper plus, I'm I'm going to do a quote \n as a new line character. So we're going to the second line, and now we want our capital sub I. I'm going to set the font size equal to 24. I want the font attributes, it should be LBL dot font size, LBL dot font attributes equals. Now here we have to use some enumerations. So I want font attributes dot bold. LBL background color. Sorry, LBL dot background color. I'm so used to using LBL with the name. So LBL dot background color equals, and we'll specify this as color dot black. I also want to set my text color, so LBL dot text color equals color dot white. And finally, let's set the text alignment. So LBL dot horizontal text alignment equals text alignment dot center. Okay, so there's my label. Now I want to create a frame. So we'll create a frame object. I'm going to call it FRM equals new frame. FRM dot background color equals color dot lime. We'll put a nice lime green around our frame. FRM dot padding equals 3, and FRM dot content is going to equal our label. So then finally I need to add that to our SL capitals. So I'm going to add the frame to our stack layout. We named it SL capitals dot children dot add FRM. And I ended up not using these strings up here. I'm going to delete those. I don't need those. I'm going to rebuild. Build all. Make sure everything compiles. Build successful. I'm going to jump back over to the XAML code, and hey, our previewer is working. This is what it should look like. Let's just test this. I'm going to run it on the Galaxy S9 emulator. And there it is. We have our label at the top, and we can scroll through the scroll view and look at all of the states and their capitals. So that is our project.